Have you ever sat down to a proper Sunday roast, poured a boat of steaming, rich gravy all over your spuds, and felt that deep sense of comforting British bliss, completely oblivious to the fact that you might as well be drizzling industrial waste onto your plate? It is a scenario playing out in millions of kitchens across the UK every single week. You buy a little red box or a shiny plastic tub from the supermarket, trusting it implicitly because your grandmother used it, believing it is just concentrated home cooking. But what if I told you that in 2026, those nostalgic staples are actually highly engineered chemical cocktails designed by corporate accountants to short-circuit your brain and sabotage your health? We are not talking about a bit of extra salt here. We are talking about synthetic flavor boosters, industrial gelling agents, and chemical dyes linked to chronic inflammation, sky-high blood pressure, and severe headaches. If you watch this video to the bitter end, you will find out exactly what the food industry is hiding behind those cozy, family-focused adverts. I will show you how to spot the hidden traps on the ingredients list. We will break down the specific household brands that are selling you total rubbish. And, most importantly, near the very end, I will reveal an absolute titan of British kitchen nostalgia that contains virtually zero real meat extract, despite what the packet claims. By the time we are done, you will know more than 90% of shoppers, and you will know exactly how to protect your family's plates. Before we name and shame, we need to understand how a genuine stock cube is supposed to work, versus the chemical illusions sitting on Tesco and Sainsbury's shelves. In a perfect world, a stock cube is just dehydrated, slow-cooked food. You boil bones, meat, and vegetables for hours until the gelatin extracts. Then you dehydrate it into a dense, nutrient-rich block. It is simple, traditional, and nourishing. But real ingredients cost money, and multi-million-pound corporations hate spending money. So, the industry invented a clever shortcut. Instead of actual food, they use a base of pure salt, processed starches, and hydrogenated fats. Then they inject it with synthetic flavor enhancers to trick your tongue into thinking it is tasting a rich broth. Think of it like buying a luxury sports car. But when you open the bonnet, there is just a lawnmower engine, surrounded by plastic covers and a loudspeaker mimicking the roar of a V8. That is what the modern stock cube industry is doing to your dinner. They use substances like monosodium glutamate and processed yeast extracts, which act as neurological cheat codes. They latch onto the umami receptors on your tongue, bypassing your body's natural fullness signals and screaming at your brain that this is the most delicious, nutrient-dense meal you have ever eaten, even if the actual pot contains nothing but salty water and grease to make matters worse. They need these cheap powders to stay solid in a damp warehouse for years, so they flood them with fully hydrogenated palm fats and industrial emulsifiers. These are heavily altered structured greases that your digestive system struggles to recognize, often leaving you with that mysterious, uncomfortable bloating after a hearty winter stew. The industry wraps this industrial chemistry in green leaves, pictures of smiling chefs, and heritage branding, creating a deceptive health halo. You think you are cooking a wholesome meal from scratch, but you are actually just operating a chemistry lab in your own kitchen. It is an absolute masterclass in corporate deception, and it is time we rip the lid right off it. Let us dive straight into the absolute worst offenders currently sitting on British supermarket shelves, starting with the stuff lurking on the very bottom rows. Walk into any major Tesco or Asda, and you will find their budget lines, like Asda Just Essentials or Tesco Stock Cubes, stacked quietly in plain packaging. They are marketed as a lifesaver for families trying to stretch a tight weekly budget, promising traditional savory depth for literally pennies. The sneaky packaging subtly hints that you are getting the same basic product as the premium brands, just without the fancy logo. But behind that rock-bottom price lies a level of extreme corporate cost-cutting that should make your stomach turn. When food analysts look closely at these budget recipes, the first massive red flag is the near-total absence of real food. These cubes are formulated with almost zero real vegetable or meat extracts. Instead, they are made of pure salt, cheap wheat flour, and synthetic flavor enhancers. They use these ingredients because they act as cheap bulking agents, stretching a single batch as far as humanly possible to maximize corporate margins. What makes these budget cubes genuinely hazardous for your kitchen is the complete lack of consistency. Supermarket value lines are rarely made in a single controlled facility. Instead, giant corporations constantly rotate their contracts behind the scenes through various third-party factories, based purely on who offers the cheapest manufacturing rate that month. This means your recipe silently shifts multiple times a year. One week, you get a batch that is mildly acceptable, and the next week you buy a pack with completely different chemical additives, higher sodium levels, or undisclosed trace allergens from a dirty factory floor. Former food factory workers have even admitted in online industrial disclosures that these value lines are often used as a dumping ground for leftover components that failed to pass quality checks for premium brands. For the average British household, the risks build up quietly over a lifetime. The extreme salt content alone can push anyone dealing with blood pressure issues straight into a medical danger zone. While the modified starches and low-grade emulsifiers used to bind the cheap blocks together are notorious for triggering sudden digestive irritation, if you think the budget lines are bad, wait until you see what the big discount giants are doing under the guise of premium lookalikes. Aldi has built a massive reputation in the UK for offering high-quality replicas of the nation's favourite big brands at a fraction of the cost, and their Bramwells and Quasio lines are incredibly popular. Their own brand beef stock cubes come in very familiar packaging, suggesting you are getting a rich, slow-simmered experience without paying the big brand premium. But when you flip the packet over and audit the laboratory nutritional data, a terrifying reality emerges. A single tiny Aldi beef block packs a massive 5.09 grams of salt. To put that into perspective, the absolute maximum recommended daily salt intake for an entire adult body is 6 grams. For a young child, it is significantly less. That means dropping just one of these little cubes into a family casserole single-handedly obliterates almost your entire safe daily allowance before you have even picked up your own salt shaker. This is a highly deliberate formulation strategy. When a manufacturer cuts out expensive real meat extracts and authentic herbs, they have to rely on an aggressive overload of sodium to violently stimulate your taste buds and trick your brain into perceiving richness. The human body struggles to process such a concentrated hit of sodium all at once, leading to sudden fluid retention and massive arterial stiffness over time. Because these discount cubes taste thin and metallic due to the lack of real underlying ingredients, home cooks often find themselves using 2 or 3 blocks in a single large pot of stew to get the flavor intensity they want. By doing that, you are accidentally multiplying the sodium load to a level that is genuinely dangerous, completely wiping out the health benefits of the fresh vegetables and lean meats you spent your hard-earned money on. It is not a bargain if it costs you your cardiovascular health. If you already feel like checking your own cupboard right now, hit that subscribe button, because the corporate tricks get even harsher from here. Next up is a brand owned by the global mega corporation Nestlé that is an absolute powerhouse in millions of UK kitchens: Maggie's seasoning cubes. These are especially popular among diverse households across the country who rely on them to bring an intense, deeply savoury umami punch to traditional soups, rice dishes, and stews. The branding focuses heavily on culinary expertise and rich tradition, making them feel like a mandatory secret weapon for authentic flavor. But beneath that global marketing lies one of the most aggressively synthetic flavor formulas in the entire food industry. When you look at the back of a Maggi packet, you quickly realize the recipe is meticulously designed to bypass your natural fullness signals and hyper-stimulate your palate using powerful chemical enhancers. The massive savory punch does not come from real slow-cooked meats or authentic herbs. It is driven by a heavy concentration of monosodium glutamate and processed yeast extracts working in tandem with an astonishingly high sodium base. Food safety data and consumer health reports consistently link high exposure to these processed glutamate sources with sudden severe headaches, facial pressure, and skin tingling in sensitive individuals. But the real issue is how these cubes completely distort our relationship with real food. The chemical intensity of these enhancers is so extreme that it effectively numbs your taste buds to the subtle, natural flavors of real, unseasoned vegetables and clean meats. Over time, your family becomes completely dependent on this industrial flavor profile, finding real, whole foods bland and unappealing without a hit of corporate chemistry. Furthermore, the vegetable fats used to bind these cubes together are highly processed refined oils that contribute heavily to internal inflammation when consumed regularly as part of a weekly diet. It is a formula built entirely on industrial efficiency and sensory manipulation rather than genuine nutritional value. Let us move on to a brand that has brilliantly positioned itself as the health-conscious, premium choice for modern British shoppers. Knorr Vegetable Stock Cubes. With its clean, bright green packaging and prominent labels boasting about natural ingredients, rich flavors, and sustainably sourced herbs, it has become an absolute staple for vegetarians, vegans, and anyone trying to cook lighter, healthier family meals. When you drop one of these into a vegetable soup or a fresh pasta sauce, you genuinely feel like you are doing something wonderful for your body. But if you flip that green box over and carefully audit the ingredients list, you discover a classic corporate health halo trap. Despite the vibrant marketing images of fresh herbs and wholesome garden vegetables, the actual quantity of real vegetable material inside that cube is shockingly minuscule. The bulk of the product is composed of salt, processed monosodium glutamate, fully hydrogenated palm fat, and maltodextrin. Maltodextrin is a highly processed white powder derived from starch that is used by large-scale manufacturers as a cheap bulking agent and thickener. It has an incredibly high glycemic index, meaning it can cause a much faster spike in blood sugar levels than ordinary table sugar. For anyone trying to manage metabolic health or avoid processed carbohydrates, finding this hidden stabilizer in a savory vegetable stock cube is a massive, unpleasant surprise. Then there is the industrial palm fat. Even though the company labels it as sustainably sourced, it is still a heavily refined, structured fat, chosen primarily because it stays solid at room temperature and allows the cube to sit in a warehouse for months without degrading. The green packaging tricks your brain into thinking you are buying a product straight from a traditional garden, but the actual science reveals a highly engineered, mass-produced block of flavored salt and industrial grease that completely contradicts the healthy lifestyle you are trying to build. Now let us look at an absolute icon of British domestic history, Oxo chicken cubes. For generations of British cooks, chicken stock has always been viewed as the lighter, gentler, and inherently healthier alternative to heavy beef gravies. Parents routinely reach for these iconic little foil-wrapped cubes when making a soothing chicken soup for a child recovering from a cold, or when wanting to add a delicate savory background note to a midweek family dinner. The branding leans massively on a century of domestic history, trust, and comforting household tradition. But when food safety researchers break down what is actually inside an Oxo chicken cube, the illusion of a wholesome, nourishing broth completely evaporates. Despite the prominent meaty name on the front of the box, the actual real chicken powder content is an absolute joke, often sitting at around just a tiny fraction of the overall recipe. The vast majority of that little foil block is made up of pure salt, wheat flour, processed yeast extract, flavorings, and industrial chicken fat that has been heavily treated to extend its shelf life indefinitely. This is not a rich, concentrated version of a traditional chicken broth. It is a clever chemical reconstruction designed to fool your tongue. Because the actual real meat content is so low, the corporation has to rely on a heavy dose of processed yeast extracts and strong chemical flavorings to mimic the authentic depth of slow-simmered chicken bones. The sodium load is incredibly severe, meaning that while you think you are feeding your family a light, health-conscious meal, you are actually quietly flooding their systems with a massive dose of industrial salt that strains developing kidneys and elevates blood pressure over long-term use. It is a complete triumph of industrial chemistry over real traditional nourishment. This brings us to a product that completely revolutionized the British stock market when it was launched, instantly rendering traditional hard cubes look old-fashioned and uninspiring. Knorr stock pots. Packaged in slick, modern little plastic tubs, the glossy amber gel inside looks exactly like a traditional, slow-simmered bone broth that has been carefully reduced down by a professional chef. The marketing campaign was an absolute masterpiece, using legendary Michelin-starred chef endorsements to convince millions of home cooks that these pots were the ultimate secret to achieving restaurant-quality depth in a home kitchen. For many families who are willing to spend extra money on premium groceries, Knorr stock pots feel like the safest, most high-quality choice on the market. But behind that polished gourmet image lies a product that is highly engineered. That beautiful glossy gel texture is not the result of gelatin naturally extracted from hours of boiling bones. It is a synthetic illusion achieved through industrial stabilizers, gelling agents, and heavily processed xanthan gum. When you look at the actual ingredient breakdown, real meat is present in surprisingly tiny amounts, and the intense, deep flavor is heavily bolstered by processed yeast extracts and artificial flavor compounds. But the most significant issue for your health is the extreme sodium concentration. These stock pots consistently rank among the absolute highest sodium options found anywhere in the UK. A single tiny gel pot can pack enough salt to push a family recipe dangerously close to an adult's entire daily recommended intake before you have even added any other seasoned ingredients to the pot. Because these pots are marketed as a premium healthy flavor enhancer, home cooks frequently drop 2 or 3 of them into a single large Sunday casserole or a big batch of winter soup. By doing that, you are unknowingly creating a massive hidden salt bomb that completely overwhelms the body's vascular system, causing sudden blood pressure spikes and cellular dehydration. It is a classic example of how high-tech industrial processing can easily mimic the appearance of traditional slow-cooked luxury while delivering a heavy load of corporate chemicals. Let us look at another name that carries an immense amount of historical weight and cultural nostalgia across the United Kingdom: Bovril beef cubes. For over a century, Bovril has been celebrated as a classic British survival ration, famously dragged along on Antarctic expeditions and drunk out of steaming mugs by millions of football fans standing on freezing stadium terraces on Saturday afternoons. It is a brand deeply associated with resilience, winter warmth, and robust health. Because of this powerful heritage, when shoppers spot Bovril cubes on the supermarket shelf, they instinctively trust that they are buying a dense, authentic, traditional block of pure beef essence that will bring genuine, old-fashioned nourishment to their family meals. But if you take a cold, hard look at the modern corporate recipe hidden inside that foil wrapper, you discover a deeply disappointing betrayal of that historic legacy. The classic formula has been aggressively modernized and streamlined for maximum corporate profit. The actual amount of real beef extract inside a modern Bovril cube has been reduced to a pathetic, minuscule percentage of the overall block. The rest of the cube is built out of pure salt, processed flavor enhancers, sugar, modified starches, and highly refined vegetable fats. This is not a rich, traditional meat concentrate anymore. It is a highly processed chemical block designed to mimic the historical taste profile of the original recipe using cheap, modern components. The inclusion of industrial oils and sugar in a product that people associate with pure meat wellness is a stark reminder of how large-scale food corporations will quietly hollow out a trusted heritage brand to save on manufacturing costs. For anyone using these cubes under the assumption that they are giving their family a traditional nutrient-dense boost of real beef iron and protein, the reality is that you are simply buying a highly engineered block of industrial salt and synthetic flavoring that trades entirely on your childhood memories. Finally, we have to place the two absolute titans of the British kitchen together at the #1 spot because they represent the ultimate corporate monopoly over our national palate. Oxo beef cubes and Bisto original gravy granules. Owned by Premier Foods, these two iconic brands sit inside almost every single kitchen cupboard in the country. The classic red Oxo box and the famous red Bisto tin are treated like secular holy relics of British domestic life, conjuring up powerful emotional images of cozy childhood Sunday dinners, grandmother's kitchens, and traditional family warmth. People reach for them automatically week after week, operating on a deep ancestral trust that has been carefully cultivated by decades of brilliant, emotionally manipulative advertising. But when you strip away the thick layers of marketing nostalgia and subject these products to a strict scientific ingredient audit, you find the absolute pinnacle of industrial food engineering. Let us start with Bisto Original Granules. Many families genuinely believe this powder is made from dried meat drippings and rich traditional stock bases. In reality, the original product contains absolutely no real meat extract at all. It is a completely synthetic illusion built out of potato starch, salt, hydrogenated palm fat, wheat flour, and flavor enhancers. That deep, comforting, dark brown color that we all associate with a rich roast dinner is achieved entirely through a heavy dose of ammonia caramel dye. The silky, thick texture is a fast-acting chemical reaction triggered by modified starches absorbing water, not slow roasting. Now look at the classic Oxo beef cube. The hold these little red blocks have on our national taste buds is incredibly deep. If you grew up in a British home over the last few decades, there is a very strong chance that you remember being given a raw corner of an Oxo cube by your parents just to lick as a savory snack. It felt like pure kitchen magic. But that intense childhood craving was not an accident. It is the result of a highly engineered synergistic triad of processed yeast extracts, pure salt, and monosodium glutamate isolates meticulously calibrated by corporate food scientists to hyperstimulate the brain's pleasure centers and hardwire our palates from a very young age. These products do not nourish your body. They trick your tongue using a masterclass in industrial chemistry. When used multiple times a week on sausages, chips, and roasts, this heavy combination of processed glutamate sources, refined industrial palm fats, and massive sodium loads becomes a major long-term health issue, quietly contributing to systemic internal inflammation, digestive tract irritation, and soaring blood pressure across the entire population. They are the ultimate corporate shortcuts, hiding in plain sight behind a wall of national nostalgia. And now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. We have spent enough time digging through the corporate sludge, so let us flip the script and talk about the actual food. Finding clean, honest options in 2026 simply requires looking past the neon marketing and choosing brands that treat your kitchen like a home, not a chemical processing plant. These recommended choices are readily available on British shelves right now, meaning you do not have to source weird imports just to feed your family safely. First up, representing a magnificent time capsule of traditional British cooking, is Compton's gravy salt. Tucked away on the baking aisles of select supermarkets or sitting on the counter of your local independent butcher, this small, unassuming box feels like a complete revelation. Flip it over and read the ingredients list. Pure salt, corn flour, and a tiny bit of natural caramel for color. That is it. There are absolutely no refined industrial palm fats, no processed yeast extracts, no monosodium glutamate, and no synthetic stabilizers in sight. It contains exactly 0 ultra-processed components. Costing under £2 for a box that lasts for months, it breaks down to less than 5 pence per family dinner. You use a single spoonful of this powder to naturally thicken, season, and darken your own real meat juices or the water left over from boiling your fresh vegetables exactly the way our grandparents did generations ago. It does not try to fake the flavor of slow-roasted beef using industrial chemistry. It simply provides the clean, basic tools to let your own real cooking shine. The only real downside is that it does not provide an instant, standalone meat flavor out of a packet, but as a pure, traditional base for homemade stocks and real pan drippings, it is an unbeatable, budget-friendly masterpiece. www.ebay.co.uk is sure to next on the ladder is a fantastic choice for anyone demanding total retail convenience without the corporate shortcuts. Marigold Organic Yeast-Free Bouillon Cubes. When navigating the modern organic aisle, mainstream health brands like Callo successfully purge the artificial flavor enhancers but still secretly rely on cheap industrial palm oil to keep their cubes stable at room temperature. Marigold has completely outsmarted this corporate habit. Their premium yeast-free cubes completely ditch palm oil from the supply chain, replacing it with a natural, nourishing blend of organic shea butter and sunflower oil. By entirely removing processed yeast extracts and high-potency glutamates, they have created a formula that lets sensitive individuals enjoy a deeply savory, herb-infused broth without triggering severe headaches or stomach irritation. It delivers a beautiful aromatic blend of parsley, lovage, mace, and turmeric that coats the palate naturally without leaving that sticky chemical film common with budget cubes. Priced slightly higher than standard blocks, at around £2.50 for a pack of 8, it works out to about 30 pence per use. It is a minor price increase that is entirely justified, because you are paying for clean agricultural sourcing rather than industrial fillers. It is an exceptionally honest retail product that sets the absolute gold standard for quick cupboard convenience. www.neatorganic.com is sure one for anyone explicitly watching their cardiovascular health, managing high blood pressure, or cooking meals for very young children. The ultimate supermarket option is the Callo Very Low Salt Stock Cubes line. The mainstream food giants want you to believe that it is physically impossible to achieve an intense, comforting flavor without packing a cube with 5 grams of industrial salt. This specific range completely dismantles that corporate myth by expertly balancing real organic vegetable powders, accounting for nearly a quarter of the entire recipe, with clean spices like turmeric and a robust blend of garden herbs including thyme and rosemary. Callo crafts a highly effective flavor booster that contains a mere fraction of the standard sodium load. Prepared as a broth, it delivers less than 0.1 grams of salt per 100 milliliters. It smells distinctly of a real kitchen garden and provides a gentle, aromatic background note to your soups and risottos, keeping you in absolute control of your family's salt intake. It costs around £1.80 for a box of 6, making it highly accessible for the average weekly shop at Sainsbury's or Ocado. The only drawback is that if you are used to the aggressive, brain-tricking salt punch of an Oxo cube, this will taste quite mild at first, but within 2 weeks, your taste buds adapt, and you will start tasting the real flavors of your food again, finally. We have reached the absolute holy grail of British nutrition, a completely cost-free cooking habit our ancestors did instinctively that we urgently need to bring back into our modern homes, saving your fresh vegetable water and boiling your own butcher's bones. Think about the incredible amount of vital, water-soluble nutrients and rich flavors we mindlessly pour straight down the kitchen sink every single week when we drain our boiled potatoes, carrots, broccoli, and peas. Instead of wasting that goodness, pour that liquid straight into a large container and keep it in the fridge. The next time you roast a joint of beef or a whole Sunday chicken, do not dare throw the carcass in the bin. Place those bones straight into a large pot, drown them in your saved vegetable water, toss in an onion skin and a sprig of fresh rosemary, and let it gently simmer on the stove for a few hours. As it rolls, the heat extracts natural gelatin, deep minerals, and authentic nutrients straight from the marrow. Once cooled, this liquid naturally thickens into a beautiful, nutrient-dense, gelatinous stock. Pour that pure essence straight into an empty ice cube tray and chuck it into your freezer. That right there is a genuine, zero-chemical, zero-cost stock cube that completely blows every highly engineered corporate shortcut out of the water, providing your kitchen with true, old-fashioned nourishment for absolutely nothing. Now that you know exactly which brands are treating your family dinner like an industrial dumping ground and which clean alternatives are actually worth your hard-earned money, let us arm you with the ultimate retail survival toolkit. You do not need to memorize every single corporate entity to keep this rubbish out of your kitchen. All you need to do is apply 6 dead simple rules the next time you are pushed down the condiment and stock aisles at Tesco, Sainsbury's, or M&S. Treat these rules as your personal shield against the clever marketing illusions designed to pick your pocket and compromise your health rule. Number 1 is the palm fat protocol. The absolute instant you see hydrogenated palm fat or structured vegetable oils sitting in the top half of an ingredients list, put the box straight back on the shelf. This stuff is a cheap industrial texturizer chosen purely because it stays rock solid at room temperature for years, acting as a massive red flag that you are buying a block of highly processed rather than a nutritional food base. Rule number 2 is the yeast extract eviction. Unless you are specifically buying an honest, fully disclosed jar of Marmite, processed yeast extracts on a stock cube label are almost always used as a legal loophole to smuggle extreme concentrations of hidden, brain-tricking glutamates into your food without explicitly writing monosodium glutamate on the front of the packaging. Rule number 3 is the sugar detection method. Check the label carefully for hidden sugars under deceptive industrial aliases like maltodextrin, dextrose, or glucose syrup. Finding these highly processed, fast-acting carbohydrates in a savory meat or vegetable product is a classic sign of high-tech sensory manipulation, used to mask bitter, low-grade chemical additives and artificial starches. Rule number 4 is the caramel color ban. If the ingredients list mentions ammonia caramel, caramel E150C, or artificial colorings, you are looking at a product that uses toxic chemical dyes to fake the rich. Dark visual depth of a slow-simmered roast dinner because the actual recipe contains virtually zero real meat extract to tint. The liquid naturally. Rule number 5 is the sodium spreadsheet check. Never buy a stock product without checking the back-of-pack nutritional wheel for salt per 100 milliliters or per serving. If a single portion or block delivers anything close to or above 2 grams of sodium, it is a highly engineered salt bomb designed to hyperstimulate your palate while putting immediate long-term strain on your cardiovascular system. Rule number 6 is the real extract percentage test. Look specifically for the actual percentage of real dried chicken, beef, or vegetable powder listed in the brackets on the ingredients list. If that number sits at a pathetic 2% or lower, you are not buying an authentic traditional broth concentrate, you are literally paying a premium for a highly processed block of industrial salt and starches to wrap this entire investigation up. The underlying principle of the British food industry is staggeringly simple. Large-scale food corporations will willingly hollow out the most trusted heritage brands of your childhood to cut manufacturing costs and maximize their profit margins. They exploit your deep ancestral memories of cozy family dinners to quietly feed you cheap, synthetic chemical illusions wrapped in heartwarming marketing. To break completely free from this trap and stop being a helpless victim of corporate deception, you need to make just one fundamental shift in your shopping mindset. Stop buying the front of the box and start reading the cold. Hard science written on the back. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time watching this expose all the way through to the end. If you want to help us push back against these multi-million-pound food monopolies and stand up for real food standards on every single British plate, please take a quick second to click that hype button and hit the like button right now. Your support directly forces the mainstream algorithms to spread this vital awareness across the entire United Kingdom. I want to know exactly what is sitting in your kitchen cupboards right now, so leave a comment down below telling me which specific brand of stock cube or